Hey everyone, it's Rob from Hypop and welcome back to another video. In this one, we are unboxing and taking a closer look at the brand new released Godox X3 Trigger. So I have with me the brand new Godox X3 Trigger. This is relatively an early look into this brand new trigger. It was actually previously named the Xnano, but then Godox were really quick to change this to the new branding, which is the X3. So if you were really early, even on their Godox YouTube channel, they had it listed as the Xnano, and it's now been renamed to the X3. So for simplicity's sake, we do have quite a few triggers from Godox since they've gone into this flash market, and initially it was called the X1, and then you had the newer version, the X2, and you've also got the XPro trigger, and then of course the updated new XPro Mark II. So this new trigger is a completely new entry for 2024. So you can see they've actually improved the overall packaging for even small items such as triggers. So let's take a closer look at what's included. So it's one of those really nice slide out type packages, similar to like an iPhone case. And you can see the first thing we see is a little carry pouch or a protective case for the X3. It has a little lanyard or a wrist strap, and it has some nice orange accents on the zipper here to complement the Godox branding. It has the Godox brand there. And on the back, you can see it actually has a little area there for the hot shoe to sit in. And there we have it. So we've got the X3 trigger here, and you can see it is super compact. So that name previously, the Xnano, was sort of aptly named because you can see it is really compact as compared to something like the X2 that I have with me here. This one that we have is the C model, so this is for Canon. And of course, these are released in models to suit Canon, Nikon, Sony, Olympus, Panasonic, Fuji, and I'm sure Pentax as well in the future. You're basically upgrading the model for the trigger system itself. Just some features that are listed on the side of the box here. You've got touchscreen control. You've also got 2.4 gigahertz, so you're able to control this wirelessly, similar on the same X wireless system frequency. You also have a lux meter. It says compatible with Lux Master, which is something that we can look at shortly. And then also compact and portable, obviously being a very small trigger. The first thing to take note of is there's no battery compartment whatsoever because it actually is USB Type-C charged and powered. So you have the USB Type-C port here on the back of the trigger. And then you've also got somewhat of an updated hot shoe here with the trigger. So it's actually got plastic components here, but it is a sort of solid build and it's fixed into the trigger system itself. And you also have pins all built into this new hot shoe because the hot shoe has little rivets that slide in there to the hot shoe of your camera. And it does look like it is a fairly sturdy build, and that's probably something to combat the likes of the Sony hot shoe that they had previously on some of their flashes and their triggers that were only made of plastic, and some of the metal pins, it wasn't a complete piece like this and it was prone to breaking. So it's good to see they've updated that. And you've also got a little button release there too. So on the side you have a dial here that lets you toggle through the different options. You have a multi-purpose button here. It's power as well as switching between modes, and you've also got the test fire button here on the side. And apart from that, that's all the buttons on the trigger itself. Now we've also got a few other things in the box. We have the manual, of course, and underneath here we have a USB Type A to Type C charging cable, and that's pretty much it. So I have the X3 set up on a stand here just so we can take a closer look at some of the menu options and how to operate this trigger here. But firstly, just running through the key features of the X3. Firstly, it is still compatible with the Godox X wireless system, which runs on a 2.4 gigahertz wireless frequency. So that means it's compatible with the likes of their core flashes, including the 8200 Pro, 300 Pro, etc. Their studio flashes like the QT series and DP series, SK series, and of course the speed lights such as the TT685s, TT685 Mark II, TT600, V1s, V860 Mark III, etc. So you don't have any issues there in terms of compatibility. You do have some features that have come from some of the other upgraded flash triggers such as the XPro and the XProII, which include the TCM feature. That's all pre-built into here. Obviously it's a compact design. It's touch screen as well, so it has that internal lithium-ion battery by charging via the USB Type-C port. The actual flash itself, it has 32 groups similar to all the other triggers, as well as 99 channel IDs, which means you can fine tune those channel IDs to ensure there's no interference, especially if you're using it in a pretty high frequency area, like there's a lot of wireless devices going on, or perhaps there's multiple shooters. And overall, it is a very compact trigger when you compare it to the likes of the XPro or even the X2. So you can see a significant difference there. Now, the fact that it is touchscreen and also an internal lithium-ion battery may be a polarizing feature for some people, because obviously being quite small, and if you have fairly large fingers, it may be harder to sort of control and maneuver the actual trigger itself. Now, having physical buttons for groups and, you know, even other dials and going into mode and things like that, and all the different dials are much larger on the other triggers, does suit someone like a events or wedding photographer, because obviously if you're in a pinch or you just need to know, you need to actually click a button and you know exactly where that is. You may not even be looking at the trigger itself, you just touch the button and you're good to go with physical buttons. However, with the X3, it's a little bit different because it is all touchscreen. Now, you do have the dial on the side here that allows you to go through and select all the different options too. So there is a physical dial. You can press down on this dial as well, so you can toggle through those options, but it may be more suited for a photographer perhaps that has a little bit more time, or it's not in a rush to miss the shot there. So if you're able to compose your shot, perhaps it's a product photographer and you're able to dial in all your settings here and you're in a more controlled environment, then the X3 may be a better option for you. And then of course, the internal lithium-ion battery being another polarizing feature because you're unable to replace those. However, this particular trigger does have an internal lithium-ion battery that is 850 milliamps or 3.145 watt hours. And apparently the standby is approximately a week. You need to go through the testing to see how that fares in real world environments and how often you use this and see how long that lasts in terms of charging. But if it does run out of battery, you may be in a situation where you would need a spare trigger just in case. Even if you have one of the older triggers, perhaps just as a backup, that could be food for thought there. Now, just to operate this trigger here, firstly, we'd have to hold on to the middle button, which is the power button. You can see the Godox logo pop up there. And the first screen you see here has a few indicators. So firstly, it's got the channel. You have the type of sync that's on now. You've got front, rear curtain, or you've got high-speed sync also. You have the modeling lamp and you have the battery indicator. And then you also have the group, the current group that it's on. We only have group A. It's currently off. And you can see I've just pressed down on that to turn that on. And you also have the menu button there that allows you to go through and enable or disable groups. A through to 9, so you have quite a few groups there, and you can see at the bottom it says group A through to E, and you have some toggles here, a minus and a plus button that allow you to cycle through options there. So if you want to go down a third of a stop or up a third of a stop, you can do that here using that, and that would apply if you had multiple groups too. So if we had multiple groups there, you can see if I'm applying those changes to that group, and then when that's highlighted, you can see it's all changing at the same time with multiple groups there. Now let's disable one of the groups. Now you can also do all of that with your finger. So you can cycle through there with the different power options from 1/256 all the way up. So you can do that with your finger quite fast. Now just jumping into the menu here. So you can see when I press down in the menu, which is kind of like your command center, you can also swipe down to get there. You have toggle for on and off beep, you've got on or off modeling lamp, and you also have a lock, which is important, especially if you are using this and it's prone to obviously being a touchscreen being pressed. And to unlock it, all you need to do is just hold down for 2 seconds and that unlocks it. And if we do that again, you can also do it with the dial here on the side by pressing down, and that unlocks it. And when you are in stroboscopic mode, to go back to the home screen, you just need to go back to home here, and that brings you back to the main group screen there. Going back into the menu, you can see settings, and settings has a few different options here. Firstly is wireless, And with wireless, you can control the channel and the ID, as well as scan for a suitable wireless channel. So just in case there's a lot of wireless devices around, you can also wireless sync too. And that wireless sync allows you to sync multiple Godox devices there to the same wireless channel, which is a great feature. Going back, you just need to press down on the manual or power button, and then scrolling through to the next option, you've got sync, which once again goes through front curtain, high speed or rear curtain. And from there you've got shoot, and shoot you can go for one shooter or all shoot, and this does tend to drain the battery when using the all shoot mode, and all shoot mode only applies to groups A through E, so that's something to take note of. They have a little note there at the bottom. Next option is auto off, and this allows you to toggle on or off the trigger to power off after certain intervals such as 30 minutes, 60 or 90 minutes. And then you've got trigger distance. Trigger distance is either 0 to 30 meters or 1 to 100 meters. So it does have a range of up to 100 meters with the 2.4 gigahertz wireless frequency. However, if you are using it in close proximity to your flash, we would suggest to place it on the 0 to 30 rather than the 1 to 100. So you just toggle that setting there. Next is steps. So you can actually change the minimum power for the trigger or the flash that you'll be pairing it with. And then also the steps. So you can change this to 0.1 increments as well, which is great. So that means you can fine tune the flash setting even more. Then you have TCM mode, which is what I mentioned prior. So if you don't know what TCM mode is, TCM mode allows you to shoot in TTL. And when you select the TCM mode or press the TCM function, it will show the actual manual setting. Then from there, you can actually further control the lights that it's pairing with the TCM. So when you press down, you can see you can control the flash and its output further. From there, you have zoom. And here you can either select auto or the actual zoom setting. Now, one thing to take note of with the zoom setting is that it controls all the groups. With the zoom setting, there is no individual zoom control with the X3 currently, but this may change in a future firmware update. And then you've got screen, which controls the screen brightness, and then also the standby time for the screen too. So you can see you can change the standby time to 15, 30, or even 1, 2, 3 minutes. Language and toggle between English or Chinese, and a reset too. So if you just wanted to reset it to factory settings, one thing to take note of when you do reset it to factory settings, which I'll do here, it does toggle it back to Chinese as the language, which you can go back into the world icon, then hit English if you need to get back to that. And of course, the device info. So the device info here shows the model, which is the X3C, and also the firmware currently, which is version 1.10. So obviously this is a brand new trigger, it hasn't been out on the field yet. And when it gets into users' hands, there may be feedback there. And Godox is pretty good with feedback and implementing changes and listening to their user base. So that's really important there. So lastly, we have, the physical button on the side here, which is the test fire button too. So yeah, as you can see, the actual touch screen is really intuitive, it's responsive. It does, everything you need it to. So you can see I've enabled all the groups there fairly quickly. Controlling settings individually is fairly straightforward. However, it is a touchscreen at the end of the day, and it is a very small device. So that is something to consider when looking at this trigger in particular for your current workflow. So definitely go ahead and give it a try if you have a store available near you. Get it in your hand and see if it's something that works with your workflow. Otherwise, some of the triggers with the physical buttons may suit you better. Maybe you're just used to this sort of trigger setup. So the X3 is really a compact trigger. It will work for a lot of people. It will really reduce the weight of the overall setup of your camera and lens if you're using a trigger. So if that's something that's important to you, it definitely is something to consider with this new X3. So that was our early look at the brand new production model of the Godox X3 Trigger. Now we have made a previous video comparing all the older models, including the X1, the X2, and the XPro. If you want to take a closer look at that video, click the link up above. And we will be updating that in the future to include the newer XProII and obviously the X3 trigger. So if you want to stay tuned for that, make sure you hit the notification bell and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Now, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below about the Godox X3 trigger. If you have any questions about it, we'll be happy to answer them. Feel free to follow us on socials. The links will be down below, and visit our website, hypop.com.au. Thanks for watching.